Okay, so today's video is gonna be about how to properly use masks, not those, in DaVinci Resolve. But you should know how to use those properly as well. Let's get started. Okay, so before we start, let's just briefly talk about what masks or power windows are and why they are useful. Alright, so if we say the blue area is our entire image and there are different things going on, whatever, say, I don't know, we're having a randomly shaped person in there, and then of the same color there's something going up behind that guy, and maybe there's even, I don't know, our DOP messed up a little and there's something going on around there. But what we want to do is just actually brighten his skin on his face, for example. And that's when it kind of gets hard to work with information that's inside the picture. So say we can't just qualify with an HSL qualifier, so the face area, because the area around it has some overlapping areas, for example, where we have similar colors. Then what we want to do is use a geometric form, so something that is not really say a property of the image itself in terms of brightness, hue, saturation, of features that we can isolate based on pure numeric values, but of actual position inside the image. So what we can do now is in fact draw a mask around that person's face and then say, okay, let's just affect everything that is inside that mask. So in principle, we can use geometric forms to isolate areas inside our image and make sure that only the area inside of our geometric form is in fact affected. So that's already one of the big strengths of masks over, say, qualifiers or other tools to isolate certain areas, that with a mask you can actually give it a certain starting point where you say, okay, this thing has a certain geometric form at a certain position that is a combination of position plus form unique inside that image. And then in a further step you can actually tell your color grading program to drag this form to that area in the image, where what the color grading tool then does, so what DaVinci Resolve then does, is it looks out for certain characteristic points inside that form or close to it and tries to follow those points as they move across the frame. And when you tell it which movements are made, so whether it's a pan, tilt, zoom, perspective change, it will then try to match the form to the movement inside the image, and you can then have your geometric form pinned onto the surface area of what you wanted it to be pinned on in the first place, and you don't have to deal with such things as lighting that changes or colors that change, but it still always comes down to that geometric form, and that form is pretty much what gives you the area that you affect with your grade later on. Alright folks, so let's dive into this. The first thing we want to know is how to get to those masks and power windows, and that's by clicking on here, and then we can see this panel. And that's where we're gonna take a closer look at today. So first of all, we're gonna just briefly walk through those masks available, and well, let's start right off. And the different masks we can get are a rectangular mask, a circular mask, a polygon mask, which we can, well, change by adding different points to the polygon. Then a curve mask, which we can freely draw inside our window. And last but not least, a gradient mask, which gives us an anchor point, and then we can do gradient along from our anchor point. Alright, so that's the basic mask. Now let's start off by taking a closer look at the mask controls, and let's start by those two. Okay, now let's take a closer look at inside and outside controls and adding and subtracting controls of our individual power masks, power windows, masks, whatever you want to call them. So first of all, the default mode is the inside mode. So that's inside now, and add. So everything that is inside our window is added to the area we affect. So this is inside our first window. And now this is inside our second window. So this area is added to our mask. All right. So now we can change it and say, okay, with the first window, we're adding everything. So still adding everything that is outside of our first window. So the resulting key is, we're adding everything that is outside of the first window. So this is everything around here, also inside the second window. And then we're also adding everything that is inside our second window. So again, adding inside our second window. So this area here. So if we now disable our second window, you will see that the black area also goes gray. Right? Pretty simple, huh? Because now only everything that's marked blue, so everything that is outside our first window is added. If we also add the second window, it also adds to the area of the first window that is now overlapped by the second window. All right. So the second thing is, we can change not only the inside outside, but we can also change the add and subtract. So let's start with our standard mode here. So both windows, again, inside and adding. And now let's change the first window to subtract. So, and what this does is it simply subtracts everything that is inside our first window from the rest of the image. So everything that is marked black now is just subtracted from the rest of the key. So in principle, this works pretty simple. So everything that adds is added first, and then we're subtracting everything that subtracts. That's also why the overlapping area here is subtracted, because we're first adding our bottom window here, so the inside of our bottom rectangular window is added, and then we're subtracting the inside of our top window. All right, now we could also turn our bottom window to subtract, and then everything gets subtracted. All right, now what happens if we start from the beginning again and we say, okay, we invert this window, so we add the outside, and now we're subtracting the outside. Then again, we have from our second window, we're adding everything that's inside our second window, so everything in here is added, but then we're also subtracting from it, in blue now, everything that's outside our first window. So that's subtracted. So everything that's left is the tiny area inside here. Pretty simple, huh? And with that, you can actually construct quite complicated masks. So you can add several of those polygon, curve masks, gradients on top of each other, and then choose whether the inside or the outside is affected and whether that area is added or subtracted. And with that, you can pretty much cover every single geometry and yeah, really whatever you want to do. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Let's go back to the more basic options again and reset our window. And of course, like with pretty much every geometry, we can change our sizing. We can also change the aspect ratio. We can do that by dragging and dropping in here. And what you just saw is we can also change the softness of our window. So the softness is a parameter that is changed for every single window in a different way. So for example, for that one down here, we can affect the inside and the outside softness for the polygon curve, whereas for such a curve we can again, so for a real curve, change the inside and the outside, but this time we can also move individual points, so soften those individual curve points for the inside and the outside individually. And then of course we can rotate the entire thing. That's possible for pretty much every single of those curves, and we can also change the opacity. So say whether the entire thing gets more opaque or not. Alright, so for the rectangle, for example, we can also change the softness of the 4 individual edges and have a nice feather effect around here. And that's pretty much the basic controls in the transform and softness area. So let's talk a little bit more about the fancy stuff. And that one, as always, is hidden underneath the 3 little dots. So of course we can save windows as presets. I've done that here, and now by clicking it, we get back to what I've saved before. We can delete those presets again. We can also reset the selected window, then it goes back to its base properties. Also we can of course copy windows, so copy that window, go to another clip, say paste window, and here we got the window we just copied. Resetting that one. Alright, and then also we can append a certain window, so like that one, and then it also doesn't just paste it right there where we had the one before, but it also appends it to a window graph, so that we got the window twice now. So one more thing that's quite important is convert to Bezier curves. This means that if we click here, actually our polygon window which we just created, so I'll return to that one. So if you take a look here, we've got a polygon window, and then now if we convert to Bezier, you can see that our polygon window now has become a curve. And when we click that little thing here, we are actually able to affect those points. So like every single new point, just as if it was part of a Bezier curve. Okay, so one thing that's quite important for polygon and curve windows is how to actually add and remove individual points. And well, adding is pretty simple. You just click on it and then you edit the point. And to remove it, you just do a middle click onto that point. It says minus, and then you do a middle click and it's removed. All right, and then when you go to convert to Bezier, you can click those. And everything you add after this conversion is actually now a Bezier point. So go over here, convert. And then you can see that by clicking on it, we've got the Bezier point. You can also force that by clicking on it while holding Control or Shift. So if you click Shift, you get symmetric handles. And if you click Control, you can just use one single of those handles. So then clicking Shift again gives us the symmetric handles. Control, one handle, Shift, both handles symmetrically. All right. Okay, so much about Bezier curves. And yeah, that's pretty much everything inside our Power Window tab. So now let's get towards the interesting stuff. Say, for example, we've got that shot of our fucking nice F7 light that we've, by the way, made a quite nice video. Well, judge yourself. That we made a video about. And say you wanna, for example, mask the F7 Mark II for some weird correction. Actually, you wouldn't draw, you would just go like this and select the F7 Mark II. And then we have one issue, which is our shot is moving. So if we take a look at it, when our shot moves. So what do you want to do about this? Well, you want to track it. All right, so windows can be tracked. And you do that by just heading over to the tracking tab, and then you choose window. And basically, then you can just select whether you want to track the different dimensions. So whether you want to track pan, tilt, zoom, rotation, and perspective 3D. So I say we can just go with rotation and perspective in this case. And you can just hit play and start the track. And as we can see, that one works pretty well. So yeah, the window is pretty much locked onto our F7 Mark II for the duration of our track. And now say we have some features that we want to include or we want to make manual adjustments. Then we get the choice between making those adjustments for the entire clip or making those adjustments for individual frames only. So say we've got clip selected here, then we can just grab that thing up here, parallel shift it, maybe say we don't want to include the F anymore, and then we can see that for the entire thing, our F7, so our window is shifted by the same amount. Now let's undo that and say we just want to shift it for individual frames. So we select frame, and say we want this window to now move over there. So what's now happened is we have automatically created a keyframe, that tiny thingy here, with the information our window has to go over here. But what our tracker has done before is also automatically create two keyframes over there that set the initial position and the end position. So what happens now is that while our track happens, our window moves from the initial position to the keyframe we set and then back to the initial to the end position of the track. So essentially we've just added keyframes to a track, and that's what the frame thingy is for. Right, now let's say we want to exclude certain data from the track. Then we can go down here to the interactive mode and select certain area in here and, well, say trash it. So we select it and then we go over there and say clear selected track data. Awesome. So now what happens? It moves over there and then it stays there. Whether you want that or not, that's up to you. All right, but what else can we do? So let's undo this again and pretend we, for example, want to reset the track data on the active window. Well, you can guess what happens here. Let's do that. Bam, it's gone. We don't want that for now. All right, we can also clear the selected track data. We just had that, or we can delete individual keyframes. So head over here, delete keyframe, it's gone. What a surprise. All right, also we can clear all tracking points. Well, this apparently does nothing right now, but if you take a closer look to how the DaVinci Resolve track works, then it actually does something very interesting. So it positions tiny tracking points all over the window. So like this, at points of high contrast, high sharpness, well, essentially points that are distinguishable from the rest of the image. And then in a certain area around those points, it looks whether it can find those points again. And from that point cloud, it actually calculates the track data. So it calculates how the individual objects are moving inside a frame. And now what we can do is actually tell the DaVinci Resolve, well, please delete certain track data. So we head over to the interactive mode. And now let's delete this. And it actually shows us our track data. So if I disable this, we don't see the points. And now if I enable it, we can go over there and insert certain track points. For example, selecting an area, inserting features, then selecting another area, deleting those features, and then we're tracking only with those. That can be very helpful if, for example, your image gets obstructed by, say, a face or whatever. You just tell him, no, don't use those points for the next few seconds, and then you can stop it again, tell him, okay, now it's okay to use those points again and continue the track. Okay, so that's tracking for you. And then again, we can also copy and paste the track data. So take the track data from this track, for example, and paste it to another window, which can be very useful if you have a very long track and you want to save time, or if you had quite some difficulties getting that track to work. Sounds pretty good to just copy and paste it instead of redoing all that work. And then as a last feature, we can also change our tracker from the cloud tracker, which we've been working with all the time now. So cloud tracker means point cloud, as I just explained, to a point tracker. And then we can head over here and tell him to add tracking points and position them where we want. Here we get another one and another one. And then we tell it to track, and voila, it uses those points to track the window. And in some occasions that may also work pretty well, like that one, for example, where we get 3 high contrast points and they're moving in a steady way and nothing really changes, and we don't actually need the cloud. So that usually works a tad faster. And we can also delete those points again by selecting the delete tool and then clicking the points that we positioned before. So position, and well, it automatically deletes the last one. Putting the next one in here and then delete, and then by clicking that one, it deletes it. All right, so that's point and cloud trackers for you, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, maybe took one or another thing from it, and if you liked it, please consider leaving us a like, leaving a subscription, really helps us out. And if you want to have a certain topic covered or something, just ask for it. We'll try to help you out will try to cover just that. And as always, stay tuned and catch you next time.